And let's see how this is looking like. So if I play, press that, it works. Press or pick up my items. If I try to drag around, I can. And we get the move sound as well. Hey there, I'm your host Zoe, and this is part 4 of our Easy Inventory series. In today's video, we'll be creating the transfer slots function. So that said, let's begin. Let's start by going to our content drawer, our inventory folder, and our inventory component. Now in here, we want to go ahead and create a new function called getDropLocation. And in here, we'll get our owner, so ourselves, and we'll do getActorLocation, so our location, and we'll do getActorForwardVector. So we have our origin and our offset. So our offset is going to be random cone or random unit vector in cone and degrees. Now this is like a cone in front of our player, if you can imagine, and we'll do 55. I find to work quite well for the degrees. So we'll do that cone and we'll have a offset by, let's say, we'll multiply this, multiply the vector like that, and we'll multiply it by a float. So right click on this little pin and do either single precision or double precision float. Doesn't really matter. Now for this value, I'll do 100. I like that. And we'll then add this to the origin. So if we're adding, this should be at the bottom. We're adding this to this, I guess. And then we'll return that. Oops, return, and this goes there. I can make this a little bit smaller as well to see things better, and call it drop location. Now let's compile and save that. Next, we'll go ahead and create the drop function. So click plus, and we'll do drop from inventory. In here then, we'll need to know about the item we want to drop, item quantity, and the index. So let's start. Input, we'll do item ID, name. We want then 2 more, integer and an index. So item quantity and index. So for the item quantity, we'll do -1, and oops, we want to minus. And the reason we're minusing 1 from it is because we're doing a for loop. And a for loop starts on 0, and our items don't, they start on 1. So we'll do a for loop. There we go. This goes there. And our starting index will be 0, and our last index is our item quantity -1. After that, we'll do a spawn actor from class. Now, if you remember, we added this class to our item info. So if we get our item data, and if we get this item, get item ID, we then have the power to get that class, break that open, split this or drop it down, item class goes in there, and everyone's happy. We can hide this then. So spawn transform will come from our get drop location. So get that, make this a pure function. My bad. We'll right click, split, and plug it in there. So far, so good. And after that, we want to get our item slots to set array element, because we're updating the data table or the array list. Index, we want to be this guy there. So get index. Oops, wrong one. Get index. There we are. This goes there. And if we drag out, do either make, or if you want, you can do split. And if we leave them at 0, they'll be 0. After this is done, we want to update our inventory. So if you remember, we have our update inventory function. We can also just search for it. Same thing. And after that, we want to play our sound effects. So if you remember, if we go to pick up function, we can just steal all of that, Control C, and Control V in there then, like this. And yeah, that's looking nice. So let's compile and save that. Next, we'll go ahead and create the transfer slots function. So let's call it transfer slots. Now in here, we want a few variables. Now, the first variable we want to be a index. The second one, we want to be a source index. Now, when I say source, this will be coming from an inventory component. Now, this inventory component can be an alien inventory component, or it can be our own. So we'll call it source inventory, essentially where we are dragging from. And of type bpc underscore inventory. So in here then, we want to get our indexes, and we want to get our item slots for both our inventory here and the source one, and get a copy. And like that, we can then promote this to a local variable called, and local means only in this function, local underscore destination inventory, we can call it. And just like that, press Q, even this out a little bit. And we'll do the same for our source. So get source inventory, get item slots. We'll do get a copy of the source index this time, and promote you to a local variable, local underscore source inventory. And just like that, we have a handy little reference we can get anytime we need. Now, after that's done, we want to get a sequence, and on one, we'll grab a branch. We want to check if this item and this item are the same. So grab your destination, grab your source, and we'll do break. Copy that there quickly, like so. And we can do item ID equals item ID, and then hide everything that's not necessary, just to please the eye, like so. And we'll drag this in there. So once this is done, if it's true, if they match, then we want to just add them together if they can be added together. If not, we want to add them to we want to swap them. So on true, we'll do add to new slot. And if you remember, we're basically overwriting data. So we're setting a new array element. So we can use that here. So on false, we want two of these. We want one for our local inventory, so this guy, and one for our source inventory. So what we can do with that then is, for our local, we'll let's grab our destination inventory and do a break. And this item ID goes there, item quantity goes there, and the index will be get source index. Right, and then we'll do vice versa. We'll do get index, so our local index, and the item quantity item ID will come from the source. So we'll do break. Item ID goes there, and item quantity goes there. And yeah, that's looking nice. So here we're getting the destination stuff and switching it with the source. And here we're getting the source and switching it with the destination. Now all of this then has to be updated. So if I drag this out a little bit, whoops, come back to me. We then on one will update everything. So we have our update inventory, call it, and we want to update both the local and destination. So we'll do both like so, and to update it, we'll simply get our source inventory and drag it to one of them. So like that, and then I want to play sound effects as well. So if we remember pickup, we have our get item sound effects and then play sound effects. So we copy, come back, paste, and plug it in. The item ID we don't have in here, so unfortunately we have to tinker a little bit. And for that, we'll just get a slot copy. So we actually have this here. We can copy the source. Yeah, let's do the source. paste, item ID goes there, and this hides. And there we are. We have our play sound effects. And yeah, that's nice. Now on true, if they do match, we want to add them, or if we can. So we'll create a new function called item transfer. Inside here, we want a lot of things. So we'll start with our source inventory. We then want to add in that source slot. So s_item slot. We'll do another one for the destination slot. We want one for the index and one for our source index. And just change these two indexes, this to s_item slot and the inventory to bpc_inventory. So once that's done, we'll grab our get source slot, get destination slot, and we'll break them open. And like so. And I want to see if the item ID, no, I just want to get it. Get item data. And I want to see, break that open. If my slot quantity is greater than, we'll plug this at the bottom, than the quantity of this and this added together. So we'll hide that so we don't have to see the item ID, and we'll promote you to a local variable called local_total sum. So if this total sum is less than that, true, we'll do something at the top, and if false, we'll then create a new stack if we can. So we'll do that in here, like so. Back. And on false, we can grab our add to new slot guy again. We want two of them. So if we remember, we'll do get source slot. We can break queue. Item ID goes in there. And the item quantity will come from the total sum. So total sum goes in there. And the index will be get index. So we can hide everything here as well. Hide that. And in here, we'll have the opposite. So get destination, or actually, no. We will set this to be empty. Get source inventory, like so. And I'll run through this code just to explain everything again, if it's not making sense. Get source index, like so, in here. And the quantity will be 0. So basically, this will get the leftovers to that new index. And then the one that we were dragging from will become empty. So on true then, we want to add them if we can. So we'll do get source slot. And we'll do this break and the item ID get item data. Hide that. And do a break again from here. And we want to get the total sum minus the item quantity. So if we're adding, let's say, if our max stack size, our max slot quantity is 5 and 5, and we're adding 3 and 4, well then 5 will go to that destination, and then the remaining will go to that other slot. So that's what we're doing. So that's that. And we then can promote this to a local underscore subtracted sum. And this will come from the true in here. And we can also copy these guys because it'll be fairly similar. So drag this in. like so. Our source slot is this here, and the item quantity this time will come from the item quantity here. So this would be that maximum quantity. And then this would get the remainder. So for that, I need this will come in here. Source slot goes there. Index is the source index. The item quantity is the subtracted quantity. Just to make sure that's right. And the source inventory is correct. Then this guy is the index here. The item should come from, again, source slot. I shouldn't have removed that. Okay. So that's looking good, I think. And let me go over the code again. So we're checking if that the added values, if they're greater than the slot quantity. If they're not, well then, well, just the destination will get that full amount and the source will get 0. And if they're greater, well then one of them will get the greater sum and the other one will get the remainder sum. So that's all. So we'll exit and go back to our transfer slots, and on true, we'll get item transfer. And then we just want to fill this out with all of the information. So source inventory goes in there, item slot goes in local source slot, destination, our index, source index goes there, and our index. So nice and handy. If you select everything, right click, and we get a align option, alignment, align left. We can bunch this up together a little bit as well. So that's that, and let's compile and save it. Next, we need to go ahead and update our slots. So we can close this down now. And if we go to our UI and to our, in here, we want to create a new user interface, and this will be our preview when we're dragging. So let's call it WB_item slot preview. Let's open that up. And in here, we want to add in, again, a small example of how our item will look. So on the width override and the height, we can set, we had 80 as the original. So let's make the other guy maybe 70. So it looks a little bit different. And again, fill screen to desired. And once we're here, we'll drag in our button like we did earlier. And with this, we'll go to style, normal padding 0, pressed 0, background color 0, so transparent. On top of that, then we want a border. And again, fill this out with a padding of 0, whatever brush color you like, something dark, preferably very similar to what you had to your slot in the beginning. And on top of this, we'll add an overlay. And with this overlay, again, padding will be 0. And we'll get an image to add to this overlay, fill it out, give it a padding so we get that border frame. And on top of this, we'll add a text like so to this overlay. So first of all, let's click on the image, name it img_item icon, and let's hide it so we can see the text. Click on the text, make it variable, call it txt_item quantity, and we'll make the padding or the size 8. Again, 3 on horizontal and 3 on vertical. And we'll just put whatever here. This will change. For the padding, we can do like we did, 2 and 0. Let's bring our item icon back. Overlay, we can leave as is. That's fine. Compile, save. And in the event graph, we need to go ahead and create a new variable called item ID, which will be of type name. And let's make it instance editable and expose on spawn. And we'll also add in the item quantity. So integer and instance editable and expose on spawn. again, just to be able to pass in these variables. Let's compile and save that and create a custom event called set item data. We can get rid of this, and this can be called on preconstruct. So like so. And from here, then we can do get that anyways, and do get row dt underscore item data. Plug it in there. And out here, I want to do a break. And we'll do item icon. And we'll do set brush from texture. Plug that in there. And the item icon comes there. We can hide everything else. And then our text, set text, oops, not sequence, set text. And this guy will come from our item quantity, like so. And with that, we can compile and save. Next, let's go back into our inventory folder. And in here, we want to right click, go to blueprint class and search for all classes. And let's do drag drop operation. So this will allow us to drag and drop our items. And let's call it DDO underscore item slot. And let's open this up. In here, we need to pass in two variables. And these are going to be our inventory component. So again, BPC underscore inventory and our index for our inventory. So integer. And we need to make them instance editable and expose on spawn. Instance editable and expose on spawn. Compile and save that then. With that created, we can go to our UI folder and open up our WB underscore item slot UI. So this one here. And if we go to the event graph and go to our functions tab over here on override, click on this, and we have an option to override on preview mouse button down. And we want to override that. In here, we will do mouse event. So from here, we'll do is mouse button down. Again, whichever mouse you want. I want left mouse, so we'll check for that. We'll do a branch. Now, before we even get to this branch, the first thing I want to do is I want to check, is the item a valid item? Is there something in there? So we can do get item ID, and we'll do, to come off true, we'll do not equals, a branch, oops, come back to me. And we'll do like that, and that's good. So that comes off true. If it's not equal to anything, or sorry, if it's not empty, we'll go true. If it is empty, if this is true, well then we'll copy our return node and we'll return unhandled. So this has not been handled. And if it is true, we'll then do detect drag if pressed. And in here, we'll do mouse event, get mouse event. And this blue guy here is simply the same thing there. In there, and again, left mouse. And we'll return this as the result. And on false, we'll simply, again, do unhandled. In here, you could have a check for right click maybe, or whatever else. And let's compile and save that. Next, we want to once again go to our functions and override, and we'll do onDrag detected. Now in here, I want to get my create widget node, and we'll add in our preview. So preview, item slot preview. And we can see those two parameters we entered. So item ID comes from there, and item quantity comes from there. So that's good. Next, we'll do create drag and drop operation. So we can add in our DDO underscore item slot. Just refresh that quick. And like so, our payload will be nothing. Our drag visual will be this. Our inventory component will come from this guy. And the index, again, comes from here. And we can return this as the operation. So let's compile and save that. let's once again go to our override on the functions tab, and we'll override on drop. Now in here, we want to, from the operation, cast to our DDO item slot, like so. And from here, we want to check if our inventory component is different than the one here. And we also want to check for the indexes if they're different, because we don't want the option to drag in from the same inventory to the same inventory on the same index. That doesn't really make sense. So we'll do not equals. And we'll do get index. And we'll do not equals on those as well. Steal that, like so. Oops. And we'll do or, Boolean, so either or. Either this is true or this is true for this to pass. And if this passes, if true, well then we'll return, if it returns false, we'll have this return value as true, so it goes in. But if this is true, we want to get our inventory component and do transfer slots, like so. So the index comes from here, and the source index and the source inventory comes from there. So we can steal those two guys to a reroute node, or EOR for reroute. And maybe I can make it look something like that. And this goes there, and this goes there. And at the very end, we'll just return true. So we're almost finished. So that's our onDrop event. Now, if we cancel the drop, so let's do override on drop, on drag canceled. If we cancel the drag, well then we'll get our inventory component and do remove from, oops, not remove, drop from inventory. And what are we dropping? We're dropping our item ID we had selected, the item quantity it has, and from this index here. So let's compile and save, and let's see how this is looking like. So if I play, press that, it works. Press my, or pick up my items. If I try to drag around, I can, and we get the move sound as well. What if I try to pick up some more and we try to switch? Works. What if I drop? I can drop the 2 or just the 1, can pick it back up, and they work. So this is it for the series. We have finally made a fully working inventory. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like, and as always, happy developing.